Hello and a very warm welcome. We're diving into some really timeless wisdom from the Qur'an today, and it tackles a question I think we all wrestle with. How do you share something you believe is true without, forcing it down someone's throat? It's all about the nature of guidance, and the perspective here is, well, it's pretty profound. I mean, it's a universal question, isn't it? Doesn't matter if we're talking about faith or philosophy or even just a friendly disagreement. We've all been there, wondering, how can I get my point across without pushing people away? Well, these verses, they give us a fascinating roadmap for that exact situation. All right, so the first big idea we encounter here is that guidance isn't something that's, well, shoved on you. It's not an order. Instead, it's framed as a personal choice, an opportunity to see for yourself that's presented to every single one of us. And to really get this, we've got to look at this key Arabic term, basair. Now, you can think of it as these crystal clear proofs or insights that come from your Lord. It's like you're being handed these perfect lenses of clarity, and they allow you to see the truth with your own eyes, spiritually speaking. So, here's the bottom line from verse 104, and it's a big one. If you decide to use those basair, if you put on those lenses and choose to see, the benefit is all yours. It's for your own soul. But if you choose to stay blind, to not look, well, the harm from that choice is also on your own soul. The responsibility, it lands squarely on the individual, no one else. Okay, so that idea of personal responsibility leads us right into our next point, which is all about the messenger's true role. What exactly is their job? And maybe even more important, what is it not? The text is super specific about this. So if you were to write out a job description, it would look something like this. First, follow the revelation you receive. Simple enough. Second, warn people about the consequences of their choices. Third, give them the good news, the glad tidings of what's possible. And this is a key part of the strategy, know when to disengage from arguments that are just going in circles. But what's really interesting is the not in the job description part. The text is explicit. The messenger is not a hafiz. That means they're not a guardian or some kind of enforcer standing over people. And they're not a wakil either, like a manager controlling their affairs. Their job is to deliver the message, plain and simple. It's not to force belief into anyone's heart. That's not in the contract. So if you can't force it, what do? How do you handle those really difficult conversations with people who just fundamentally disagree, or maybe are even hostile? Well, the Qur'an gives some incredibly practical, street-smart advice on this. Let's check it out. The first piece of advice is actually a kind of strategic disengagement. The messenger is told, look, turn away from those who are so deep in their beliefs that all they want is a fight. The point isn't to be rude, it's to avoid getting trapped in those endless, pointless arguments and to stay focused on the actual message. Okay, but right when you think the advice is just walk away, the text drops this really profound, really nuanced rule. It says, even as you're stepping back from their arguments, there's one thing you must not do. Do not insult the things they worship. And the reason for this is just brilliant. It's not about political correctness or just being polite for the sake of it. It's a deeply practical strategy. Why? Because if you insult what they hold dear, you're just going to provoke them into insulting God out of pure spite and ignorance. You'd actually be causing a greater harm. It's a masterclass in de-escalation. All right, this brings us to a really tough question, one that comes up all the time. What about the people who say, I just need more proof? What if they demand some huge, spectacular sign, a miracle? Surely that would do the trick, right? Well, the text lays out this exact scenario. You have people swearing their biggest, most solemn oaths. They're promising, just show us one undeniable, knock your socks off miracle, and we swear we will believe instantly. And, on the surface, that sounds kind of reasonable. So that leads to the obvious question, right? If that's all it takes to guide them, why not just show them the miracle they're asking for? The divine answer to this is so telling. The Quran's response is that the problem was never, ever a lack of evidence. See, for those who've already decided from the get-go that they are going to refuse, that very decision causes their hearts and their eyes to be turned away. A miracle can't change a heart that has already locked its own doors. Okay, so let's pull all these different threads together. What are the big, timeless principles we can take away from all this? How does this divine counsel actually apply to how we talk to each other and how we understand faith right here and now? So, let's wrap this up. The core message is that seeing the truth, that's a personal responsibility. Our role, if we're sharing a message, is just to invite and to warn, never to force or enforce. And to keep our conversations from spiraling, we're taught to avoid insulting what other people believe. Because remember, even a mind-blowing miracle can't change a heart that has already decided on denial. And in the end, that fundamental choice to accept or to reject, well, it has its own deep, spiritual consequences. And that really leaves us with a final thought to mull over. In a world that is just overflowing with arguments, with people shouting past each other online and offline, this ancient wisdom challenges us to think about a totally different way, an approach that's built on clarity, on respect, and on understanding what guidance really is. So the question for all of us is, what is the wisest way to share what we believe?